Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Fanpubcast from Thefanpub.com. It's Alan Shaw back again.
Oh, it's great to be back. This is getting more and more exciting now. You can feel the pressure and the tension is mounting ready for the season, isn't it? And I'm very, very excited about where we are going to be heading in the next couple of weeks. I suppose there's tons of news now, is there, Al?
Every week we do this podcast, every week is a week close to the football. So
yeah, looking forward to any news you have. But before we do, we better give a big shout out here because we've been in contact with a team called the Garvan Cowboys over in Ireland. They're one of 3 original teams. They actually date back to 1986. They've got their senior team, who are currently in the playoffs. They've got a flag team and a junior team, which is about to start up again. All of them are going really well, apparently, on all accounts. And got to say, I obviously have Irish background. It's great to be in contact with these kind of people. We look forward to hearing more about their seasons, how they finish off, and obviously keep us in the loop, guys and girls. Let us know if you're playing, where you're playing, and so forth. And we'll always give you a shout. So thanks very much for touching base with us.
Okay, well, on to the news then. Okay, the first bit of news is we touched on it last week about Ryan Matthews being the worst kept secret, about being cut.
I think just
but
worse.
They still hadn't cut him.
The worst, I think it will.
But now it seems like they've actually waiting for him to be medically cleared so they can cut him and save 1.15 million.
Yeah.
So it's all about money and.
Yeah.
NFL teams are doing this more and more often now. There's no sort of care about the player. It's all business.
Well, this is how players have to treat the teams and teams treat the players. It is all about the business. I'm afraid there is a huge financial burden with the player, particularly when they're injured, which sounds awful, but it's just the way it is.
And he's always injured, isn't he?
And he's always injured. But he will get picked up. I mean, this is the inevitability of it. He's a good enough player that somebody will take a chance on him. Or at least be used in a rotation of some kind. So I've no doubt this is good for him, really, in a way, and it's better for them. So both parties win, because obviously if he's medically cleared to play, somebody's going to come in once he's been cut and have a look at him.
We also touched about Dorial Green-Beckham last week. He's just gone through waivers and cleared. No one picked him up.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan anyway. What I saw I didn't like, and I guess.
Do you think there's any chance?
Well, I hope. That? I mean, I always like to hope for any player that there's still a chance, but I mean, I think it's going to come down to him realising the situation he's in and the effort he makes over the next few months. Maybe for next year, he has to kind of target. Maybe
it's a wake-up call he needs. Really,
he might get on a team. I mean, he could break into, even if it's just a sort of a practice player. Then you just take
him with the Rams.
The Rams will probably take him if he's under 5'5" in height, probably. But I think
he's got that going against him.
He's a bit too tall for us.
For the Rams,
he's a bit too tall for us. We just don't. We like small wide receivers because we're a
great
believer in them. Yeah, we're a great believer in them. Cooper Kupp's he's different, but it's a coaching change. How long will Robert Woods be there and Tavon Austin after McVay's had a year with them? Not long.
You don't think?
Well, I don't think so. No, we'll see some big changes.
Well, talking of the Rams, Todd Gurley came out this week and said he's loving the team's new offense and the first year head coach Sean McVay.
The thing that was clear from the words he actually used for me was the simplicity of the offense. Now that's a key message, which is the guy has come in, realised how complex it all was, which doesn't work,
and
simplified it down to a base level where everybody can understand what he wants and everybody delivers exactly what the coach needs. That's good for everybody, particularly the running game. Running game needs to always get back to basics.
I'd say particularly for the quarterback, because he doesn't really know where he's standing or what.
Well, I feel sorry for him. I mean, it was a bad line. To be fair to him, it was a very bad line. And as much as I want to kind of politely crucify Goff, because I'm not a huge fan yet, I have to give the guy full respect for standing in there against that kind of onslaught, because the Rams didn't help him in any way. We couldn't get the running game going, which certainly wasn't Gurley's fault, because as the amount of times people were literally tackling him a yard or two back from the line of scrimmage is just ridiculous. So until we see both these players with a little bit more time, like if Goff gets just a fraction more, half a second more time and still isn't improving, then there's an issue with the quarterback. And if Gurley's got better blocking up front and still isn't making the yards, or not very much at all, then again there's going to be some huge changes with the Rams over this next year. McVay I don't think will tolerate people. They will be moved on.
If you sort of look at the offense that the Chiefs have, which is kind of a lot of sort of trick plays, getting fast people. This is a sort of, getting Tyreek Hill in space. He's rushing it. And this is the kind of thing they need to do. Get clever plays.
I think the base. Yeah, I think you're right, Al. I think the base of the team is the defense. I think we've always had quite a strong defense. I think last year again was, there were moments where you actually thought the Rams' defense had done a really good job. I mean, you look at the start.
But that was quite decimated. If you watch,
they got injured, so many injuries, but they started 3-1, and that was flattering to deceive. And then they fell off the cliff because really they couldn't actually score points.
I mean, the defence. If you watch All or Nothing, you see how you forget how decimated they were, and in the getting injuries of people going down the front and centre.
Yeah, it was really bad. But I mean, there's hope. There's hope now under the new coach, and I'm just going to give him the full time he needs. I mean, I'm not going to expect much from the Rams, and if we can look at least scare people enough that they don't want to play us, even if we are a bit of a.
They scare me enough that when I watch them.
Oh, they scare me.
They scare me to watch.
When you don't put up many points. I mean, at home, that's terrible.
Let's hope they can bring something to the table.
I hope so. I don't want to keep talking about them.
Gary Barnidge has come out and said he's yet to hear from the Ravens. People are putting 2 and 2 together. They've lost a couple of tight ends. They've had a couple of injured like Watson last year. And Barnidge is a free agent, so they're putting 2 and 2 together and making a fit there. Do you think that's a...
anything's possible with the Ravens. They seem to pick up anybody. I mean, that's one of the things about that team that always interests me. They seem to always be putting fits together where fits don't shouldn't actually work. It's possible. It wouldn't surprise me that he got at least a trial out there. They often do that. They seem to be one of the most aggressive teams for picking free agents up that I've seen in recent years, because I think they're realising that a number of their players...
he hadn't heard from him yet, so they're not that aggressive on him.
I don't think it's one that they're interested in. But I mean, as I've always keep saying about tight ends, it's... if people think that the running backs were treated difficultly over the last few years, not getting the kind of contracts maybe they deserve because the game has changed, I think tight ends are in the same mould, I think.
I actually read this week about Taliaferro. We were wondering why he was still there. They were actually converting him to a fullback, and he's taking Carl Juszczyk's job. So
good for him.
No longer a running back; he's a fullback. So.
Well, really good for him. I mean, that shows his strength.
At least he managed to stay around. He must have something. He
must be very good at ploughing a hole. I mean, that's the reality. He must be really good.
Sean, you can't spread rumours like that. We don't know if that's why the head coach has
kept
him around.
I think he's probably a gigolo, isn't he? That's what he is. I mean, he's got the name for it, isn't he?
I think we'll move on. The lawyers will be here telling us. Move on.
I might put that on a t-shirt.
Rashard Jennings
put you off the podcast now, isn't it?
Yeah, put me off everything, to be honest. Rashard Jennings expects to sign with the team before the new season. He's been keeping fit through Dancing with the Stars. Obviously, probably heading to a backfield to muddy that up pretty soon.
I think his relevance is pretty limited. I think it's Paul Perkins.
What if he could? We're not saying they're Giants. He could go anywhere.
Well, I don't think he goes back. Oh, let's put it this way: he doesn't go. If he goes back to the Giants, it doesn't muddy anything. He's going to become a free market man. He could go anywhere. He could go to
he could
go to the Ravens. He could go. There's so many options, isn't there?
The Ravens have got enough,
but it could get muddier. There's any potential possibility he could go anywhere. You know how teams are; they release players, and if they're cheap enough, they may even pick them back up. So, anything's possible.
Probably roll a few out, like the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't.
New Orleans, they probably don't need enough.
It would have to be a really amazing fit for me to even, raise an eyebrow.
Well, name one where it'd be a good fit. You can't, can you?
It's so difficult. I just see him as a journeyman running back now. I mean, it's a running back by committee kind of player. He's a veteran, isn't he? All he does is bring stability, potentially to for coaching on the field. Maybe a young running back tandem they can sit behind and give them coaching.
Well, you kind of think he was doing that a little bit last year, don't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I certainly felt that. I don't see any value in it now, and I think. I just can't see where he can latch on. That's the problem. And if he does latch on,
I thought that would like people in the last few years, like Steven Jackson and
would it be
Joe Bell?
Would it be too much to say maybe the Cowboys? Potentially a veteran just in case. Put him behind McFadden.
Well, McFadden and Morris, they don't need another one, do they?
Well,
that's two pretty good backups, isn't it?
I suppose it is, but you never know.
If something happens to Zeke,
who knows?
Well, talking about Zeke, that news broke after last week's podcast.
Wow, that is some news.
That is a bit worrying, isn't it?
If that's concerned as well. I know we've talked offline about this.
Yeah, where are you? Where do you stand on it? How much would it put you off?
I think the league is going to have to take a stance. I think the league is allowing it to play out in its entirety for the right reasons, but they are definitely being pushed by the American press to make some kind of statement, and a statement basically will mean some sort of suspension. My guess is it's a 1 or 2 game suspension at worst. I mean, look, if they offer a 3-game suspension, that would be shocking, and that will probably get cut down to 2. And if they offer a 2, it will get cut down to 1. So the truth is, we're talking about a 1, maybe 2 game suspension, worst case scenario to start this season off. It may not even be this season; it could be next. So there is every possibility it could roll.
So how far would he fall down your draft board?
Minimal. I would be delighted if he slipped with a 1-game suspension, to 6 or 7 in the ADP.
Who would you draft at 3 now?
Brown.
Would you draft Brown above?
I would put Brown in there because he's the safest player fantasy-wise you could do. If you can't get a top tier.
You say that, but is he? You got Martavis Bryant coming back. Mm-hmm. You got Big Ben's injuries.
Yeah,
he's always talking about retiring. So one more bad injury, it could be the.
Well, you raise a very good point, and it is certainly worth considering.
There's no such thing as safe. I remember 2 years ago, everyone said Eddie Lacy was safe.
Well, I still think if you look at how many times Brown hits 10 fantasy points as a bare minimum, that would be a good metrics to look at.
We might look at that.
That would be interesting to see. I think let's put it this way, I would rather have Brown there just to be on the safe side personally. At least I know I can rock my team around that, and I'd be comfortable.
Do you think he's safer than Beckham?
I have a little few concerns on Beckham actually.
What with Marshall and
I got a few concerns. I think there's a little bit more cloudiness hanging over this situation because as much as I rate Beckham, and I definitely see him as a first-round talent, no doubt about it. I mean, you're kind of looking at little details now where you're going, is he definitely going to get you 200? Because I always look at that as my first line. And I'm a little bit concerned that he just won't quite do it.
If you look at all those, you've got Evans, he's got people with Deshaun Jackson and OJ Howard.
A lot of talent around him.
So they've all got people coming into their new look offence, which could affect their target. So you've got to really think about.
But it's a really interesting problem because this is something I was thinking about really about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Was when I was thinking about wide receivers and what makes them sort of what they call anti-fragile is the usual byword people use. But we all know that every player has a chance to break down. But obviously you get less contact with wide receivers, so there's less chance. But
there's no chance.
But there's no chance. And the other thing as well that can make them actually fragile, not in injury terms, but actually in what happens to their production is if you've got lots of new weapons around them, and they are good weapons, a good quarterback will spread the load. That's what all the great ones do. That's what Tom Brady does, what Aaron Rodgers does. Breeze, they're never afraid. They don't have one target, and if they did, that would be a disaster for them. They spray the ball around. And that's what will happen. So you are right, because you could see the reverse. I'm thinking Mike Evans will get a slight uplift. What if he gets a slight downtick? What if the same happens to Brown? Both of them then slightly actually fall outside the 200 points. And actually, they're a good pick.
AJ Green got a new rookie as well.
They're a good pick, but...
What about AJ Green then? Because he's a new rookie with Ross.
I don't think Ross impacts AJ Green as much as some of the other people have got. I think the wild card for Green will be...
Is he perhaps safe for them?
The wild card for Green will be Mixon and how quickly it translates into that offense.
I'm glad you mentioned Mixon, because he's the next bit of news item.
Great.
Jeremy Hill is set to keep his role in the offense. You're wondering who said that? Marvin Lewis, head coach.
Yeah, well, he would do. He has to support him. I mean,
the way they described it was a fiery defence, as if don't write him off.
Well, let's just work it through. As I've said previously, right? It's with all these guys coming in, it's just a question of when. I think he has the greatest chance for the quickest impact, Mixon.
What I'd say is, though, there is risk because Marvin Lewis is notorious for not putting in rookies straight away.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe 6 or 7 weeks in, but by the time that,
all I'm looking at
is he
I think a superior talent, which he clearly is. All I can say.
I don't think anyone doubts that.
All I can say about this is that sometimes you just have to believe. Okay, this is how I see it.
I don't.
This is how I see it shaping out. Pre-season will come. Mixon will get some opportunities to shine. He will shine. He will be left with a big quandary, Marvin Lewis. And even if he doesn't put him in and give him the big game script early on, he's still got to give him some carries the first few games. He's got to give him at least 5 to 7 first game. Probably similar in the second.
You're drafting him so high up. You
Agreed.
Need him to.
All he needs is to show what he's capable of in the NFL, and he will immediately bust out. He will be a second thought. And I'm convinced that he shakes out that way quickly. Out of all the rookies coming in, Mixon is the one I'm more confident on than anybody else.
I think long term, I agree with you, especially next year. but he's going high enough this year to worry me.
I don't have any doubts about what Mixon's capable of for this season. The concern,
and we haven't even talked about Gio.
Concern is that you have to pay a high premium for the rookie, and you have to
he
decide.
might not play till week 6.
You have to decide in your own right whether you're prepared to pay that premium. You're going to pay in a very large league round 3. In smaller leagues, it could be round 4 or 5. That's a big price to pay for any rookie.
He's a guy notoriously doesn't put in people week 6 or 7 early.
That's what you have to weigh up. That's the question.
You lost half a season of value.
Yeah, that's the question you have to ask yourselves in any of those leagues.
And then Jeremy Hill could still lead goal line.
In Dynasty, it's easy. It's a definitive yes. In a 12 or 14 man league, I'll take a punch at Mixon. In a 16 man
punch
league,
is a bad. You can't. You don't want to be doing that, Mixon.
See that? Look, I've put another one in there. It's good. I'll take a stab at. I can't even use the word stab at Mixon. Don't use any connotations of violence.
You'll take a chance.
A chance. That's the word. Yeah, a chance on Mixon.
A chance on Mixon.
A punch is.
We'll move on. Okay. Well, the next is we're probably going to talk about these lot because they're new players into the league. This is from the Panthers.com website.
Yeah.
Jay Stew, obviously Jonathan Stewart, they believe he's going to keep the bulk of the carries this year.
Yeah, well, I agree. This fits in. This does fit in with what we think. I think Christian McCaffrey takes at least a season to work in. They'll find
going
ways
high as well.
Too high. See, his is unrealistic.
So you're more confident on Mixon than you are on McCaffrey?
Well, yeah, because Mixon's a 3-down back. He can do everything. He can catch the ball, run the ball, and block. And Mixon is a fabulous blocker, which I'm sorry to say Jeremy Hill isn't so good. That's why Mixon has every chance to work his way into that lineup fast. Whereas McCaffrey isn't that kind of player. Yes, he can do it, but doesn't suit him. And the truth is that they've got to change their entire offense. I mean, whereas McVay's come in and making it easy, They've got to throw plays out.
So you think they'll just, build McCaffrey in?
They'll build him in. It'll take a good season to build him in. I mean, I won't be surprised if he gets I'm thinking 50, 60 catches, maybe 65 as an upside first year. That could massively jump year 2. That could be 90.
No, I agree, yeah.
That could be 90 year 2. He could be definitely PPR value. He has some PPR value this year. But I think you just have to be a little bit cautious.
He will get some carries, but I don't think
he'll
get the bulk.
Just be very, very cautious because teams can game script for a player like this guy until the Panthers have got everything just right, and that's going to take a bit of time. We'll have to see how it shakes out in the pre-season. Okay. Good player, very good player though. Exciting.
Okay, well we've been asked to do this actually as a new section. We thought we'd give it a try, see if you like it. This is called ADP Fallers and Risers. So these are people that...
this is fantastic for fantasy.
So when we say ADP, we're talking about average draft position, so where they'll get picked in any draft.
This is fantastic for fantasy, and it will be very interesting to see what you come up with this
week.
Let's
talk about the risers at the moment. The first one is Kenny Stills. He's at 40 places, if you like charts. He's to 157 from 197.
That's fabulous. I think the reasons are fairly simple. Look, as much as Devontae Parker's getting a lot of fantasy love right now, I personally think Kenny Stills will actually benefit because I think Devontae Parker's still glass.
Well, so Kenny Stills is always going to be the deep threat. He might only catch one ball a game, but it could be 50 yards and a touchdown.
I like Kenny Stills in situations where he's going late enough that he's very good in standard league scoring, and he's very, very good in a best ball league. He's a fabulous player to have in a best ball league.
Yeah, if you're doing an NFL 10 or something like that.
He's a fabulous player to have. And I think actually is more chance he stays healthy because of the way they use him than it is Parker staying upright for throughout the whole season.
You probably don't want Stills in PPR, but in like best ball or
fabulous.
Do you want to take a shot against somebody?
Well, in a standard league, I don't see any problem with it. His ADP's low enough even still that he's good value, isn't he? I mean, it has climbed. That's a considerable climb, but it's still value. But I'm not surprised. We've talked about him quite a bit actually as being a player that we quite like targeting later on. He's in those middle rounds, those tricky middle rounds that you need solid players still. And I like his situation. I really do.
Even at 157, even in a 12-team draft, he's probably going to go and draft it in many leagues. So,
well, it's a fantastic situation to have. I wouldn't mind him on my bench in a league like that where it's a bit smaller and you can have you can take some shots at later players. He's not a bad player to have.
No, okay. The next one's Tyler Lockett. He's up 39 to 141.
That's a big concern. I mean, I can see why, because obviously the Seattle Seahawks have really only got one legitimate.
Lockett is a really good player, I think.
Super fast.
But he got a horrible injury in the end of last year.
Yeah, I mean, they've only got one major wide receiver, that's obviously Doug Baldwin, and they're always looking for that second guy, to help support the game. And I know they see him as Lockett. That's what they see him as. But Lockett just hasn't had much luck. I mean, every time you think this is his year.
Everyone sees him as Lockett. That's who he is.
Yeah.
No, as a second wide receiver.
Yeah, but he just never stays upright long enough, does he? I mean, he always seems to end up getting knocked about, or that was horrendous last year. So I see the reason why he's climbing, because people concede that there is a player with a huge ceiling potential if he gets going.
Well, I think another reason for the rise is Pete Carroll came out this week and said he may be ready for training camp, which is massive if that's true.
It's huge. I mean, it was a bad injury, so it would just show you how far along the recovery training.
It looks like he's well ahead on recovery times. Which...
We had discussions about him, and we thought he might be just ready for the start of pre-season as opposed to training camp. So this is a huge improvement. That's really amazing.
I mean, Curse is really poor, isn't he? Really?
Yeah,
I think they're starting to know he's patient.
It's a non-factor, really, in fantasy terms. I can't give Curse any time. I'd rather take a flyer on Lockett, but you're paying a big price now for Lockett. That's quite a serious price for a player that's coming back.
1 for 1.
Yeah, it's quite a serious price in large leagues. In smaller leagues,
he would have gone a lot higher last year.
Yeah, he would have done, but in smaller leagues, like you said, he could go undrafted, and that's probably the best scenario, really. You can then see how pre-season shakes out, or pick him up if you can. Personally, I would rather, there are other players in that ADP I would rather take a shot at, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. The next player we're going to talk about is Eric Ebron, and he's the player who is getting a lot of love.
This guy really upsets me, frustrates me fantasy-wise. I mean, look, just because
he's just 33 to 1-1 now.
The guy did 300 yards, then 500 yards, then 700 yards, doesn't mean he's going to do 900 yards. He's only ever had, 4 or 5 touchdowns in the season.
Yeah, but I think people, with Bolden gone, that slot guy, he caught a lot of touchdowns last year, actually. It was 7 or 8, wasn't it?
I can see.
They could go to Ebron.
I mean, even if, look, let's say Ebron...
over the middle.
Let's say Ebron cracks... Right, let's say Ebron cracks 1,000 yards. Okay, let's say it's an amazing uplift. And let's say he gets 10 touchdowns, right, which is amazing. It's 160. That's stunning. There's 21 more points than Kelce last year. Kelsey, sorry. I love saying Kelce.
Don't say it.
I won't say it. I'll just take my Mixon shirt off. No, I'm going to just say very simply, look, he's probably it's this year at best. There's an improvement in yards. I get that. I understand that. But the touchdowns will always be low. He's a pack tight end.
That's what people are seeing the upside in.
He's a pack tight end. You can get him cheaper. There's so many tight ends you can get. Why waste?
Well, you're looking for somebody with upside, aren't you? He is somebody that could.
And his current ADP is
1-1-1.
That's way too high for me. That's too high. There are other tight ends I could pick later.
But you can see what people are saying. I mean, Detroit threw the ball 70% of the time in the red zone.
Yep.
65% last year. So they throw a lot.
Oh,
I think really it's probably capturing a lot of those.
I totally get it, but I would say
Anquan Bolden, and he's gone, so it could either be they could go to him.
We can see how this all shakes out, but
Tate's not a big red zone
there's
target.
There's a lot of tight ends in the pack here. He's one of them. I mean, as much as there's an uplift, he's now too high a price for me. I'll take a shot of a player.
So I can't sell him to you then.
No,
you don't want to.
No,
trade
not
him?
interested. No.
Okay. I haven't got him, but just
people can buy into the hype as much as they want. That's great. Please do take him. Leave me some other players around him.
Next guy, he's up 26 places to 165. JJ Nelson.
Yeah, Cardinals. I mean, you can kind of understand that. I mean, again, they've got the similar situation. I mean, they lost Malcolm Floyd. They've been looking for John Brown to make that uplift, which again doesn't look
problem,
which doesn't like issues. Again, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year because there's lots of rumours and niggles and things hanging over John Brown already. So JJ Nelson would appear to have that uplift side. There is a chance actually this guy does break out a bit this year. So I think we have to take this as a bit more interesting because that's an offence that has potential to put up some serious fantasy points as well. So I'll certainly be watching to see how JJ Nelson shapes out over the camp and pre-season.
He's another deep threat, and he's fast.
Yeah, another best ball kind of player. One you can pick up really late, and particularly in a large league, he'd be worth a flyer. I don't mind a player like that as a shot.
What about in Dynasty? Obviously,
The question you have to ask yourself in Dynasty is unless he breaks out fully, is he just
might well be gone?
Is he just a filler player? And that would be my question with him. Do I want to invest any money and time in him? is he going to marinate and do something? I think for this year, I'd take a chance and say yes. But if I see, he could be another Marcus Wheaton kind of guy. You give him a lot of time, and then you realise what you've got is what you've got, and it ain't a lot.
Well,
so
Marcus Wheaton, the star of the Chicago Bears for this year.
That's the very Marcus Wheaton I'm referring to. Yeah, the wheat has never ripened. I'm afraid
it's the sort of the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, he certainly is the chaff. He really is.
Not the wheat.
He's no wheat for me. I can't give him any time. He needs to eat his Weetabix. That bloke really seriously has had so much time in the NFL. He could be one of them, JJ Nelson, and that's what concerns me most. I mean, I'm prepared to give him a shot in a Dynasty League. I'd even give him a shot in Standard if he was at the right price. I'd give it a go because I think there is a ceiling there that could be a bit higher than most people think. It's got to be because Fitz, we know, also kind of weakens down the stretch, doesn't he? Somebody's got to carry the load. David Johnson can't do it all on his own. There isn't much else behind it.
Maybe he can.
He
seems to be doing all right in it.
I will say this. I mean, if any player tells you that they're going to rush for 1,000 yards and receive for 1,000 yards and they're going to break that this year, I believe in David Johnson to do it. So, yeah, he will do that. And how many ever touchdowns, it doesn't really matter, does it? Johnson will get at least 10. So that's an amazing year, isn't it? Another 260 plus. Well, he's easy good for it.
I don't think anyone's doubting David Johnson this year.
No, they shouldn't. He's as solid as they come.
The last player on the list is Kenny Britt. He's at 25 to 105, an ex-Ram.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of his?
Well, I like the situation, actually, funny enough. I mean, it is actually brewing into a good situation for Kenny Britt. He has proved he can get 1,000 yards. He can get touchdowns. He's in Cleveland. Corey Coleman, who was kind of on the edge of being a player we would have been talking about a lot this year, fantasy-wise.
Been struggling.
It's really struggling. Lots of different reasons. So Kenny Britt immediately obviously gets an uptick. I think a lot of fantasy enthusiasts have seen that. And naturally he's rising. And I think it's an interesting team because they're going to be chasing the games a lot. They are improving, and there will be some game scripts that suit them. And I think the team is a bit more balanced now they've got a proper running game.
Well, Britt did have sort of injury, health issues, let's say.
Yeah.
A few years back, but he actually showed last year.
He's shaken them off, I think, now, and he can't use that against him, as they say. Sometimes a player needs a bit of bad luck goes against him, and then they look.
He's gone to the Cleveland Browns. How much bad luck do you need?
I think in his case,
from the Rams.
That tells you a lot of the direction the Rams were heading, really, doesn't it? But I think Cleveland are an improving team, and they've got good back office management. I think we saw that in the draft. They're putting good pieces to the team. You could see them making turn around relatively quickly. A year or two more, Cleveland could be a force to be reckoned with. It's possible.
Myles Garrett said his legs sort of doing fine, whatever that means.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he'll be back.
The number one pick overall.
I'd like to see him out there doing what he does, being really interesting, being very disruptive. So yeah,
what's your take on? While we're talking about the Browns, how do you reckon Njoku will do this year?
I think he'll do really well, but I think you have to.
You're not a fan of tight ends in general, are you?
No, I mean I don't hold out much stock fantasy wise for many of them. They are pack players. There's very few.
Is he one you can see any upside with?
500-600 yards and a few touchdowns sprinkled in. It's nothing special. It's a pack player tight end. The future is much better for him. I mean, dynasty wise, 2 years, 3 years down the line could be amazing. But you just have to temper the reality. First year in the league and the differences. I mean, he's going to be expected to do a lot of blocking. And let's be honest, their game, he's going to need the tight end blocking a lot. I mean, let's think how many times the quarterback's going to be under pressure there. They need the tight ends to hold.
We don't even know who the quarterback is really yet.
No, so I think we just have to be realistic. The future looks good, but for standard league scoring and stuff like that, just temper your enthusiasm. Mind you, they're going late enough where if you want to
cost you anything,
it's not going to cost you much. It's a pack tight end; they can all score similar points. And hey, if you get the right one, maybe he gets more yards than you think. So he's okay. I don't mind that.
Okay, on the reverse side of the coin, we got the big fallers in the ADP. One of the biggest ones, Adrian Peterson, down to 77.
That's a bit surprising. So there's not as many believers out there as I am. I'm a big believer in him for this year. I think that's great. 24 points down is huge. That's great. I
just saw a quote saying Peterson is toast. He's not on my draft board.
That'll be something you got burnt through probably last year, probably. But I have no problem. I mean, look, he's dropping down ADP. This makes him even better value. That's 2 more rounds in a 12-team league that he's dropped. Great. Bring it on. When you get to the middle rounds of any draft, you are looking for players that can supplement the top players. I say to you all the time, from the moment you start
round 7 in a 12 team.
Well, from the moment you start drafting, every round you start drafting, depending on the league size, it's roughly 5% drop off that you get So you can quickly see, and it starts at 80%, by the way. That's the best you can hope for. About 80% of your first round picks generally lock. There are years where that metrics gets thrown out of the water, like in 2015 when all these running backs died. That killed it. But actually, this metrics, I built this over 15 actual fantasy seasons, and I know it's accurate. So it's roughly 5% a year. Now, what then happens is, and this is a problem, you get to around like Peterson's, and you are below 50%. You are way below 50%. Seven rounds in, you're well below 50%. So you've got about a 35% chance. I would rather take those odds. I'll take a 35% flyer on Peterson doing what he does best. Christ, in 7th round. You're building players. You're looking for lock players.
They played Hightower at Ingram a lot last year.
If Peterson locks in, at that position, and he's your third running back and locks in and actually ends up being an RB2
that could
or
be
better,
a league game winner.
That could change the entire dynamic of your league. So I would rather... Because look, you're talking about players down there like round 7. What sort of around him? Could you give us a little ADP look at Peterson and the running backs around him at the moment, based on his ADP? That'd be interesting.
You just want to look at running backs?
Yeah, just around that ADP, just to have an idea of the kind of players around him that you could choose.
So Adrian Peterson is the 31st running back of the board, so he's got LeGarrette Blount just ahead of him and Doug Martin just behind him.
So they're two. They're actually, all three of them are very choosable. I mean, you could choose any one of those three, I think, and you could argue
he's actually going above Rob Kelly now.
You could argue which ones which one you prefer. But I'll be honest, I don't have a problem with taking him there. It's worth a shot. I mean, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at taking a shot, and if it doesn't pan out, it's not a huge cost to your team.
Not going to cost you your season.
No, but it could win you your season. I think that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, the big.
I mean, you're at a point where risk is what it is. It's risk reward. You could play safe and pick safer options, but the odds tell you there is no safe options down there. They're all risks. So you have to take those chances. And I would rather give it a go. And I believe in him for one more year that he'll do something good this year. He's in the best offense of his life.
Okay, next one down 24 is Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah.
173.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, maybe this is due to the Super Bowl hangover that everybody assumes that Atlanta are going to have. And maybe it's because, when you look at the cursory players, the players on the edge who... how's he going to factor under the new offensive changes? Will somebody like him, who was kind of scripted in to certain plays, will he have a falter? And I think this is what a few has to see, and I think he probably ends up losing game script. It's a fair shout, but I still think Atlanta are very relevant, and it would be foolish to not utilise a player.
They were the highest scoring team in fantasy by quite a distance last year. But is that sustainable? That's the point, I guess, isn't it?
Well, I'm not a believer in that it is. I mean, I think they do lose something.
Tevin Coleman and Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah.
If the offense doesn't fire as well, they're going to be two of the people that struggle.
I think that's wise comments. I mean, I think they will struggle a bit, to be honest with you. And we'll have to wait and see what happens really with it. But I can see why people, fantasy enthusiasts, let's be honest, are starting to realise that there are changes coming, and therefore that's going to affect certain players the way you look at them, and he's one of them, and I understand that, and I agree. But he's not one player that's on my radar for this season. He's not a player that I would give time to in a fantasy draft. I can't see me buying any shares.
Okay, well, the next player is Jaquiz Rogers.
Oh, God.
It's your favourite?
My nemesis, this guy.
So Jaquiz Rogers, he's down, with the opportunity he's probably going to get. That's quite surprising, I think.
Yeah, because you quite like him because obviously
I think
Doug Martin's not going to be there the first few weeks.
He's going to be 3, and he put up good points when he played last year, and he's definitely going to play 3 games this year, probably, with Doug Martin.
And they always say, don't they, that if you have a situation where a player has the opportunity in the NFL, running back has the opportunity and they shine, the player coming back might struggle to make his way back into the lineup. So what Al's saying there is absolutely correct. I mean, that's really good value for his ADP. And he's another player that low down in the draft. His current ADP was, sorry, Al, what did you say it was?
His current ADP is 174 now.
See, that's excellent value down there.
It's free in most
leagues. That's so cheap that he's a player that he's going to get. You're going to get a few. Look, if you're a zero RB kind drafting for whatever reason, and you're looking for a running back filler. That's going to be not just a filler for a few weeks, but actually have value after, even when the main guy returns.
Yeah, Doug Martin's not that reliable, is he? He's got drug problems. He's got problems with putting up consistent. He
has great years or poor years. There's no in between.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the problem. And when you're talking about fantasy, consistency is the key, and Doug Martin doesn't have it.
The next player is Devontae Booker. He's actually ADP 2.09.
He's dropping like a stone, isn't it? I mean,
this is probably because of Jamal Charles.
Yeah, Jamal Charles. It's a whole running back by committee situation, and the rookie really has. He had an opportunity, didn't he, Devontae Parker last year? He had an opportunity to come in and maybe establish himself as the number one, or at least at the very least, as you say, the heir apparent to it. And he's not done any of that to help himself, and I suspect those numbers reflect that now. And I've got to be honest again, I can't see me buying any shares in it. It's just too crowded and muddy for me. I don't think Charles makes it, but then again, who knows? Stranger things have happened. But even if he does make it, I just think that muddies it even further. So I'm not.
And they have tried to improve the airline, Denver, but it's still. The
wins will come primarily from the defence holding and keeping the games close, and then the offence closing out the game with a few, couple of touchdowns.
If they had a quarterback and an O-line, they'd be dangerous.
Very close again. Yeah.
Cole Beasley's the next one, down 23 to 192.
This is hamstrings injury.
Yeah, so he's had hamstring tendonitis, which is.
This is a lingering issue, and this is something that's going to affect him a lot. I mean, we've talked about him being, a very good wide receiver for Dak Prescott as kind of somebody he trusts. I think that worries me a lot, actually, when we're talking about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. It may only seem like a minor thing, but then the pressure falls to Des Bryant, and they're up against some bloody good corners this year. I'm not liking that situation at all. I'm really concerned for the Cowboys. I'm sure they'll get wins and grind them out, but you're talking about the potential of could start the year with a 1 or 2 game suspension for Z. Could be Cole Beasley not really in the factor in.
Half his defence has been locked up.
As always, they lose an offensive lineman due to some fracas somewhere. Defensive players being locked up as well. I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
And the lack of pass rush.
I was really, they may go on, tearing it up again, because a good running back can control a game. There's no doubt about that in my mind, having watched so much NFL over the years and seen what the great ones can do. But I would be worried in this situation that there are chances that you will see some regression across the board for Dallas this year. It doesn't mean it's a bad team at all. Far from it. They've got all the pieces in place to be very good for a few years ahead. But it just might be this year. It could be a tough year for them all. We'll see.
Okay, certainly interesting.
Don't mean to disrupt your team, but they're far better than us.
Well,
I'd rather have your problems than ours.
Well, yeah.
That's for sure.
I'm a bit more encouraged by my team, to be honest.
I just wish Tavin Austin would get locked up. That would help me a lot. And Robert Woods, so we might actually recruit some.
But he might be in the midget fighting league next year. You never know.
Don't say that out too loud, because Joe Mixon might buy shares of that.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to cut, trade, keep. We like to give you these. These are a bit of a, you have to cut one, trade one, and keep one.
Yeah.
This we just talked about him. Jonathan Stewart's one of them.
Yeah.
Matt Forte.
Oh, okay.
And Rob Kelly.
Well, I'm definitely dropping Kelly. Kelly doesn't even factor in this.
Really?
No, I'm definitely dropping him. I'm not factoring him.
The number one running back from the Redskins?
Yeah, I'm not factoring him at all. I'd rather drop him. I'm going to keep the player that I'm going to keep. Give me the two, Jonathan Stewart and
Matt Forte. So two older.
I'm going to trade on Matt Forte's name. It's always the trade on the name. Hope for the best. You're not going to get a lot for him, but I'll trade on his name because I don't like their schedule. I don't like much about the Jets this year. I'll keep Jonathan Stewart, which may surprise people, just purely because I think with his ADP, with the fact he'll get some goal line plunges, and the fact that I don't believe in Christian McCaffrey, I think it's a winner there. So that's how I'd view it.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The next one, the wide receiver one.
Oh, you got another one. Oh, that scared me now. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. You shouldn't be ready.
That's not good.
I don't want you getting ready. Stefan Diggs.
Yeah.
Willie Snead or Jamison Crowder.
Oh,
cut, trade,
wow.
keep.
Now that's the brilliant one. Okay, I'm keeping... I'm going to trade Willie Snead because I think there's a great uplift for Willie Snead this year. I really believe in what New Orleans Saints are doing.
Do you think you can get more for him than one of the other two, though?
Yeah, well, I want to keep one of them, and I want to keep Crowder. So
you're going to keep Crowder?
Yeah.
So you're cutting Diggs?
I'm cutting Diggs.
Do you think you get more for Snead?
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you the reality of the reason why. So I think Willie Snead, I'll get more.
Is it Sam Bradford?
Yeah, but I think with Willie Snead I can get a lot more value because there's a lot of fantasy talk about Willie Snead. I mean, I am going to be talking about him. I might as well mention it now about him. I can see a big uplift for Willie Snead this season, working opposite Michael Thomas, but not enough to actually put him on any of my radars in terms of, this player's going to rise up or he's going to be on my sleeper list or any of that stuff, because Willie Snead won't get enough touchdowns to do that. But what Willie Snead will do is he will keep everything relevant in that offence with the way it's going. So I believe in him in terms of, you're going to see an Eric Ebron effort from Willie Snead this year. He ain't going to get a lot of uplift in his touchdown numbers, maybe 1 or 2. He'll probably get an extra 250 yards, which is fantastic. He could be closing in on 1,000 yards receiving, but the touchdowns will keep him right down in the mix. And that's the problem. But people will buy into the fact that he may have a bigger role than he has to play. So that's why I would trade on him. I'm keeping Crowder because I think Crowder's ceiling's huge this year. I really do.
I like Crowder.
I absolutely think his ceiling's massive. I'm a Kirk Cousins believer, have been since he came in the league, have been since the debacle of the Washington Redskins negotiations, and it has been a debacle.
That's still going
the irony is that
still going on.
Would you believe that because they've had to... here's a funny thing with this. Because they've had to effectively... redshirt him, really, for want of a better word, for 2 years in a row, really. Give him, protect him, free agent protect him. Franchise tag him. He's still being paid $24 million this year. 24.
Not bad.
If they franchise tag him next year, he gets paid more than Carr. That's incredible, isn't it? And he no way they'll be able to afford it. It will just be crazy money next year. They've got to come up with a contract or he's on the open market. So Crowder I believe in, and I think Crowder's the perfect weapon for him in that. I just think he's just see a nice scene in there and a lovely floor.
Who would you rather have out of Pryor and Crowder?
I prefer Pryor over Crowder. It's a personal choice.
Just because of size as well.
Just size and everything else. But I like both. I think both can be very relevant for this year. As for Diggs, I don't think the offence is going to be. I think he's very good. Sam Bradford, that's clear his stats. You've highlighted
what does the eye test tell you about Stefan Diggs? Do you think he looks a...
There's moments.
He flashes him.
There's moments where I go, you know what, this guy's fantastic. But I also saw moments where he just disappeared. So consistency is the byword for me in fantasy. He doesn't meet that test. So I'm just... he's gone. In that cut trade keep, he's gone. I would love to trade on him. I think there's tradable value. But no. I'll wait and see how it develops out. He had moments where he was shining last year, but I just think he wasn't consistent enough. So we'll see what happens this year.
Okay.
There's a lot more weapons now in that Minnesota offense as well, so it's not simple anymore with Dalvin Cook coming in.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook and maybe Treadwell gets involved.
Maybe, yeah. You don't know now. He might do.
The tight ends, having an increased role by the looks of it.
Rudolph is a very solid.
Carl Rudolph picked up really
real
well.
Solid safety valve. So that takes away a lot of opportunities. But we'll have to see how it works out for Stephen.
Do you think
Diggs.
that's sustainable? Do you think he'll continue to be?
Not really. I think he's kind of at the point near enough where you're going to get what you can get out of Carl Rudolph. There may be a slight uplift. That's good enough in a tight end pack. He's one of the best. He's one of the top.
He's going high enough.
But he's going high enough where I can't afford to buy that kind of price.
Okay. Well, we've had a couple of questions in from viewers.
Yeah,
listeners.
excellent.
Sniper asks, what are your thoughts about Devin Funchess for this season?
That's an excellent question. I mean, because there's a lot of issues there with the Carolina Panthers passing game over the last couple of years. If I could see anybody who has a stratospheric ceiling, who has a chance to become very special, then it's got to be Funchess. Again, he's a bit like Stephen Diggs we just discussed. You can see flashes, moments where you think, oh, this guy could be super elite. And then other games where he just disappears off the game script. I think the one concern, actually, funny enough, because I'm not a believer in Kelvin Benjamin at all. I haven't been since the injury. And like we've highlighted before on previous podcasts, I totally see what you've said, where he took a big hit in a game and he literally kind of just gave in.
He had that strong start of the season and he took a big hit and then you never saw him again.
I can't buy into a player that does that in the NFL. You have to show toughness. One of the key criteria at any position is to show toughness, because
you won't last otherwise.
He won't make it. Whereas Funchess does show those qualities, but my big concern, I would have had him on my list this year, except for Christian McCaffrey going in there. The problem is they're going to have to change the game scripts round to match the new rookie.
Cam likes to do a lot of it himself.
And Cam does a lot of it himself. So I kind of feel Funchess... I do like the opportunity, and maybe he a little breakout this year, but I think the breakout for him is still yet to come. So I'm kind of thinking it's another year away. Some players do take a bit of time. So he is very interesting, but just not quite enough for this season.
Not enough to get excited.
Not enough yet. I mean, as much as rightly identified by Sniper that there's certainly an opportunity for him, I totally agree. But I'm just sorry, I'm not going to buy into that or pay the price for him at the moment. I think there are better players around at that ADP point.
Okay, let's see question answer. We've also had a question in about about your voice. We've had a couple of people mention it now.
Oh, that's probably horrendous. I do apologise. It's the East End Cockney accent.
They're calling you the Barry White of NFL podcast now. I think.
Oh, God. Yeah, we can only apologise.
Well, if this doesn't work out,
there's always a singing contract out there somewhere, isn't there?
Or I was thinking 0898 numbers, you could go on that. So it's a career to fall back on.
It certainly is a career to fall back, because this is paying peanuts, literally, or Coke actually at the moment. I'm getting a glass of Coke and a cup of tea. You're
not getting any peanuts, so stop mentioning them.
No peanuts.
Okay, well let's.
It's very kind of them.
We love all comments.
I think it's your voice they're referring to. I don't think it's mine.
I know we've had a couple about yours, so I'm pretty sure it's yours.
For God's sake, it's a nightmare. It really is. It's quite funny actually. That could change. A lot of things could change. Anyway, if it's the voice, I'm glad it is only the voice, and they can't see our face, because otherwise that would really put them off, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Thank God. That's why we always say we've got.
The reason we haven't got a camera.
We always say we've got voices for radio. That's all we've got. We certainly don't have faces for it. That's for sure.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, well let's just briefly talk about some more. We talked about some running stats last week, and we also talk about consistency ratings being key to building a good, strong fantasy football side.
Yeah.
Now somebody's done a table, a chart really, of running back consistency numbers from last year. If we look at David Johnson, for instance,
is this standard league scoring or PPR?
Yeah. So this is. I'd say this is PPR. So we're talking about half-point PPR here.
Okay.
So David Johnson, every single game he had 10 points or more.
I mean, how elite is that? I mean, you're actually looking for, so people know, it's why that's so important a stat. Is I always say to Al, we always work out what we know in 16-man leagues, and we'll start there because it's easier, and we'll probably do a video at this some point, that 90 points is, depending on the scoring system, it's sort of standard scoring system, small tweaks, 90 points. If you can score that or more every week,
then you're
in with a great chance of winning that week. And obviously the bigger the score you put up, the greater the odds are. It's actually, as you quite rightly say, it's like an 85% chance if you score 90 points, you actually win the game. And this has been proved. People at first thought I was crazy saying it, but over the course of the time, it's certainly proved to be the case.
Well, you did actually say you could see David Johnson getting 1,000 yards of each last year and 270 points, and I think even I thought at the time you were a bit crazy.
But it worked out.
You were spot on.
It worked out. He was well worth it. And the thing is about him, and when you can get 100% at 10 points, you're looking at 12.5 points for your running back.
Well, not just 10, so he gets 93%, he gets 15 points.
Well, all this tells you is what you're looking for is if you break down the numbers that you expect from the key positions. So this is your number one pick. You only want 12.5 points every single week. If he could deliver that on the whole and do it, the guy is elite. But this guy's doing 100% at 10 points and
93% he got 15.
I mean, how
and he got
good's that?
He got injured one game, don't forget.
Yeah, how good's that? And what go down a little bit deeper.
He got 73%, he was at 20 points or more.
It's just remarkable.
67% he was at 25 points or more. 40% he's at 30 points or more. 40%.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he was on a stratospheric curve, and this brings us beautifully, because we can have a little segue piece here, to this little thing, which is just to remind you all that we are sitting on a piece of information, a golden nugget of my number one pick for this year, which we're not going to let out of the bag. If you thought last year's pick was incredibly ballsy and right, then you're going to love this year's pick, because this year I've spotted something that I think is going to take your fantasy teams, if you commit to this, to a whole new level. But we're going to save that for just a little bit longer, aren't we? I think we're going to wait till at least early August before we release this, and we'll start releasing these videos then. We'll do a countdown, if you will, from my number. I think we'll go from 12 down to my number one. These are targetable players that aren't normally on everybody's top list, but there are reasons behind each of them. But this is going to really blow your mind this year, and I'm really excited about it, because I was right about David Johnson. I'm absolutely sure this will work for so many reasons. This will be a really exciting video.
It's certainly going to be very interesting to find. I mean, I want to find out what it is, to be honest.
So anyway, moving on. Okay, so that's an excellent stat and proved how valuable he was.
Well, yeah, I mean, even when you're getting 40% of your games at 30 points, I mean that's a great start to any team's fantasy.
People talk about regression on him this year, and that's a good question. I suppose we could follow that up on here, which is simply this: Do I think there's going to be a regression with David Johnson this year? No. No, in fact, they need him more.
Yeah, barring injury.
Yeah, the only thing that can go wrong is injury. The guy proved what he's capable of last year. I honestly believe you're looking at a 2,000. I've said a 2,000-yard running back here. Forget the receiving part's the bonus. The guy is more than capable. If he was put in a certain game script, imagine him playing in Denver. Oh my God! It'd be a 2,000-yard back sitting there. In terms of running ability, just let the line do what it does. Or imagine him in Dallas, behind Zeke's line. I mean, what would David Johnson be able to achieve, or Le'Veon Bell for that matter? What would they achieve? So he's more than capable. They are going to need him a lot. The only concern I have with him is wear down this year. He's young enough to cope. I don't have any red flags with him. He had a small knock last year, and rightly they rested him. Quite right too. That wasn't the key game to put him in. Needed the week break. But I think that's the only risk hanging over him. He's as solid as they come, and he can certainly achieve.
Let's just talk about
big numbers he can get this year.
Yeah, I think he's consensus number one.
He's my number one, and the only reason he's number one is I do believe both in Bell and Zeke. Even though Zeke's got the suspension now, he's still great value. But if we take David Johnson and Bell just for a split second, the only reason I put David above him is both are elite. Both you can give stats and argue for both. It's just that David Johnson, just health-wise, I personally think is a little bit more consistent.
Well, let's just compare and contrast Bell and Johnson.
That'd be very good. Yeah.
Bell also got 100%, 10 points. Obviously, he missed some games, so we're talking about games where they can actually play. Lev Bell 92%, 15. Yep. 75%, so slightly higher than David Johnson at getting 20.
Yeah, but this is PPR.
Yeah. So when it gets to 25 points, Bell only did it on 33%. David Johnson did it on 67.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? Massive. What an
and on 30 points, Bell was 25 and Johnson was 40. But Lev Bell actually had 8% of games, which I'm guessing is probably one, of 35 and 40 points. So actually real high echelons of scoring.
They're just elite freak athletes in the NFL.
And Zeke's pretty similar. He's actually down to 53% at 20. Similar numbers for the others.
Yeah.
So he's actually 20%. Behind him, which you expect in PPR.
You would, yeah.
LaShawn McCoy put up pretty similar numbers to Zeke. He had a couple of 20% of his games with 30.
I've seen a lot of podcasters actually putting McCoy as in a tier of his own, just behind the top three elite ones, and that massively concerns me because I think with the news of Ezekiel Elliott, what's going to happen is that some drafters.
I've seen McCoy as high as 3.
That's what I see happening. I think McCoy gets pushed up because of the Elliott news. And I've got to be honest, you need to be very wary of this and just remind yourself what happens in 2015. Just look, take a more consistent player. Just be very, very careful. And if you do go in for McCoy, you must get Jonathan Williams. And one bit of news you didn't give this week, actually, I've just got to add this in here because it's worth doing. They have stated that the number 2 is Jonathan Williams.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
And that confirms everything I believe.
And you can get him cheap.
And I was right on this from the moment this season started. I had a feeling this is the way it's going to break out for a number of reasons for him. And that's what you've got to do. If you're going to get McCoy as your number 3, so that's the way it pans out in the draft, which is fine. We all know how good he is. I'm not doubting that. I'm not saying he's a good player. I have this red flag. It's what I call the double red flag that now hangs over him. It really concerns me. He's just reached that point where one of them, either him or DeMarco Murray, falls over. And the reason I highlight him more is that it has been more difficult to work out the backup, but if you listen to what I've said earlier, you now realise I was right. Jonathan Williams is the guy you got to target. Just be safe. This is one rare occasion. We will talk about handcuffs in another video about when to or what players are worth handcuffing. He's certainly one of them, but you've got to really work it out.
I don't remember that, but we've also said in previous podcasts that backup role. 8 to 10 touchdowns the last 2 years, for being a backup,
and that's not bad value either.
And if McCoy goes down, and he has
that
injury,
I think we can argue that you would immediately think the player just because of opportunity. Just the fact the role will massively grow for him. It's got to be in a low RB2 at the very least.
Buffalo run the ball more than any.
Yeah, it's got to be, and in that weather as well, you're going to run more.
Although there is a new sort of head coach there, so.
Yeah, I think the one thing a head coach change can't do, though, in a situation like that, is Buffalo is awfully cold in November, December. I don't think anything changes the velocity of what you've got to do in that kind of conditions. So we'll see how it pans out. But I think it's a good opportunity. Great mention, though.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. It's absolutely. I want you to comment on them. DeMarco Murray's the other guy you talked about. We all know how good he was. 93%, 10 points.
You pay a premium. This is the problem. I mean, it's worth mentioning here as well, Al, because just to get this handcuff thing across, I don't believe in handcuffs except for certain players. Now, DeMarco Murray, you either own one or the other. You either have DeMarco Murray, yeah, or you get his backup, Henry. You don't own both unless it's Dynasty. And the reason is you've got to pay such a high premium in any kind of standard league, haven't you? I mean, at the very least, in those large leagues we're talking about, you probably got to go in around 4 to get the backup, and you're giving up on some very, very talented players. Now, you could argue that you've got a number one all year, but you haven't got 2 number ones all year. That's the issue with this. If you get the handcuff that early, you've got a player that is doing nothing. It has to sit on your bench because that's the way it is. And if he does play, then DeMarco Murray's fallen over. You've lost your high-end pick. So
target Jonathan Williams, who's going whatever round you like.
Cheap as chips if you can get him low enough. It's
in
worth a shot.
In the highest percentage run offence in the league.
You just take a gamble. And
I mean, it's crazy why he would be so low.
It's worth the risk every time. So that's all I want you to weigh up when you're thinking about handcuffs. You either go in on one or the other. I think there is some. Derrick Henry has some standalone value, I believe, but you have to again tailor it with reality. I mean, DeMarco Murray will get the load.
He's still the number one.
He's going to get the load, and he will get used in certain situations. So I personally think you either believe in DeMarco Murray, which I do, or you don't. And if you're in Dynasty, if you've got both, you're laughing, you're set, because it will give you at least 1 or 2 years of great value with DeMarco Murray still to come. And then Derrick Henry's a stud in the wings waiting to come in, and I think he is a legitimate number one running back. So we'll see how that all pans out.
I don't disagree, actually.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
So basically what we're saying is use common sense when you're looking at backup.
Always be careful, yeah. Get value. Value is the key.
I mean, and Jonathan Williams is probably a guy we'd advocate you go
Yeah.
Okay, Melvin Gordon next. He was 92%, 10 points or more. Devontae Freeman, 73%. Now, the reason... One of these things that is highlighted here is the next guy off the board is quite a surprising one. That's Theo Riddick.
Yeah, but it is PPR.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that's
30% of his games were 25. He delivered you 25 points.
Well, because of the PPR, I mean, he had a lot of games where he caught a lot of high volume of passes as well. So.
But he doesn't go like he's the number 8.
And remembering last year, Amir Abdullah there was no legitimate number one running backs. There was more game script for him to get normal carries. So all that sort of stuff factors in. So he was higher than you think. And that's.
But he also missed games.
He did, but it would concern me a little.
But these are percentages. So
you kind of have to. He'd be ideal, as we said earlier. He's one of these guys. I quite like him, depending on how your draft has gone. He's great for that 0 RB draft, or in PPR it's great value because he can put up a number as a low RB2, or even sometimes occasionally give you RB1 numbers. Nothing wrong with that, and that's spelled out in that actual graphic.
30% of his games are 25 points or above. Then
you'll definitely
you would have done
that.
very nicely when you played him last
very
year.
Happy, yeah.
The next guy is surprising as well. It's not Jordan Howard, it's Latavius Murray.
Yeah, good game script though, and it just shows you how good their offensive line is there in Oakland, doesn't it?
83% of games you return 10 points or more.
I mean, this may highlight something quite interesting because I know you're a big Lynch fan,
and 50% were 15 or above.
Yeah, you're a big Lynch fan, so I mean, if Lynch is legit and comes back and is full on and full to go with no issues, and has
up behind a
great O-line, he can do a job. And the other thing, I have to kind of take my biases out because I'm not a huge Lynch fan, so I've got to.
How to explain that to me? Why are you not?
It's so difficult to explain. It's just
as
because
a player. Why
it's just because of the not the final few games where he was injured. It's before that. Seattle fans knew, like I was.
It's not that you're not a Lynch fan. You're just worried about his injuries.
He had actually begun to lose a step long before the injury at the end. He's had time away from the game, and that worries me as much as it's. As much as the heart's there and the desire to play, is there reality there? But sometimes
you see, for every yard.
Yeah, but sometimes you see players that you would describe, and I'm going to put him in this category this year, which may be very unfair. I'm going to put him in the category of plodder. But you know what? Behind that line, we saw what LeGarrette Blount could do in New England, and he's a plodder. Maybe Lynch has one of them years. You go, wow.
Come on, Lynch.
But you are going to pay a big premium.
Lynch is not a speed merchant.
No, but you are paying a premium. I mean, ADP for Lynch is what now? Is it fallen or dropped? Do you know, Al, off the top of your head, what Lynch's ADP is? Could you just quickly have a little peek for us? Because I'm curious to see what his current ADP is. I mean, we know that he was hovering in that second round of a large
He's the 14th running back off the board at the moment.
So he's probably late second now, is he? Can we have a little peek at that?
And overall, he is...
I'm kind of curious, what's that?
32.
Bang on the end of a second round large league, or you are paying.
Oh, okay. The two people that sandwich him.
Yeah.
Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Marius Thomas. Sammy Watkins,
and you can
Travis Kelce.
and you can kind of see why he's going there.
You tell me you'd like
him.
them.
I'd take him there.
There you go.
I mean,
I rest my case.
But I wouldn't actually take him there. I'll be honest. So
you just said you would take him.
But out of those ones, I would. Yeah, I've got other players I'd target around than him.
The thing with him is, he has the most yards after contact. Can't stop him.
It is.
I wouldn't want to. Would you want to tackle him?
No,
I'd like to see you tackle him.
I'd be a pretzel for that guy. I mean, I'm not even a punching bag, am I? I mean, I'm no use to him at all. He'll just snap me in half. That guy. He would just see me as a twig and blow me away. No, I don't. It's so difficult because you could see behind that line maybe a plodding is enough, and maybe the desire and the heart is enough.
Well,
to carry
Latavius Murray's a plodder.
Yeah, I've still got to stick with what I believe this year. I bet he ends up becoming more of a non-factor than you would believe. Which guess what means Latavius Murray might still be relevant.
Well, Marshawn Lynch, plodder or beast beast mode.
Is he still?
Let us know.
Beast? Is he still a beast? That's the question.
We're coming to the end of the podcast, so if you're still listening or watching, please.
Thanks. Thanks for doing that. Yeah. But you know what we need to say? Very important at the end. We need to get likes, subscribes, and of course your comments. This is critical to growing this podcast. We can safely say that the podcast numbers are growing because we're now up to 70 subscribers, which is excellent. We're trying to push towards 100, and that's important, and we do need every single person to have a look. Please help us share these videos, because without that we can't grow on, and we are getting some fantastic comments right now.
We are.
Well, I am anyway.
I can't abuse Sean. I can't abuse Sean all podcast on my own. I need support.
I'm getting enough abuse.
He does get abuse, but there's room for more. Come and give him some.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Al, for that. Yeah, okay. Live and come and give him some.
Okay, well, thanks once again for watching. Give us a thumbs up and please subscribe.
See you next time.